Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 83, I call up House Resolution 76 and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 76, resolution removing a certain member from a certain standing committee of the House.
Pursuant to House Resolution 83, the resolution is considered read. The resolution shall be debated for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking member of the Committee on Ethics or their respective designee. For what the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest, and the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania, Ms. Wild, will each control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Mississippi.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and insert extraneous material on House Resolution 76.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I come today to the floor pursuant to the process put in place by the previous majority in the 117th Congress. At that time, I served as a member on the House Ethics Committee. Today, I serve as chair of that committee. Roughly 2 years ago, on February 4th, 2021, I publicly warned of the dangerous precedent set by the previous majority as they put in place an unprecedented process to remove minority members from their committee assignments. 2 years ago, Democrats offered a resolution. That resolution, based on Clause 1, House Rule 23, removed a Republican member from all committees and referred the matter to the House Ethics Committee. However, the process instituted at that time by Speaker Nancy Pelosi bypassed any Ethics Committee involvement and brought the matter directly to the House floor for a vote. I and many of my Republicans warned that this majority veto over the minority party's committee assignments appointments removed important rights of the minority party. Republican members also warned that this process set a precedent that future majorities would follow to remove members from committee assignments. Following the roadmap previously approved by the Democrat-controlled 117th Congress, we are here today to debate and to consider House Resolution 76, a resolution to remove Representative Omar from serving on the Committee on Foreign Affairs. Today's resolution, as it relates to Representative Omar, details 6 statements she made as a sitting member of Congress that under the totality of the circumstances disqualify her from serving on the Committee on Foreign Affairs. It is important to note that this resolution is very narrowly tailored and does not prevent Representative Omar from serving on other committees. House Resolution 76 instead simply states that she cannot serve on a committee that receives classified briefings and is responsible for maintaining international diplomacy. The Committee on Foreign Affairs is a prestigious committee viewed by nations around the world, both allies and adversaries, as speaking for Congress on matters of international importance and national security. All members, both Republican and Democrats alike, who seek to serve on foreign affairs should be held to the highest standard of conduct due to the international sensitivity and national security concerns under the jurisdiction of this committee. Based upon the important mission of this committee and the precedent previously set to remove members from their committee assignments, I support this resolution today. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Mississippi reserves. The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in opposition to this resolution, and I will yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you. I rise as the ranking member of the Ethics Committee, a body that I am proud to have served on throughout my entire time in Congress. And I also rise as a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, which I've also served on throughout my time in Congress. Many people don't understand the nature of the Ethics Committee. It's a unique body within this Congress. It consists of an equal number of Democrats and Republicans, and it offers a mechanism by which complaints against members of Congress and high-ranking staff can be vetted, investigated, and adjudicated on pretty much of a confidential basis by the members of the committee. And I'm very pleased, what may really surprise people is to know that we often come to completely unanimous decisions in that very bipartisan committee. So with that said, I'm disappointed that my colleagues in the majority are choosing as one of their very first exercises of authority in this Congress to pursue vengeance over governance. Governance would be to allow this resolution, which has been referred to the Ethics Committee, to proceed through the committee's regular process. The Ethics Committee is charged with determining whether member behavior violates the Code of Official Conduct, and when warranted by a violation, recommending that the House adopt sanctions or restrict certain privileges like service on committees. I strongly urge a return to the days of civility, which would be nice to see here in this body, in which I think the American people would very much welcome. And, you know, one of the ways of doing that is to have this chamber allow the Ethics Committee to do its work, so that we avoid a situation where every couple of years, when there is a transfer of power between one party to the other, we don't see these constant efforts to boot people from committees based on past actions. If a member does something egregious that is worthy of a complaint, any member can bring a complaint to the Ethics Committee, and it can be dealt with there. The majority is seeking to advance this resolution they're trying to advance it before the Ethics Committee, and yet the Ethics Committee has not yet even adopted its rules, held an organizational meeting, or convened for the first time this Congress. I want to address the issue of due process. During the rules meeting leading up to today's vote, a number of concerns were expressed, and it's been reported in the media as well, concerns about due process. The resolution, House Resolution 76, claims that any member reserves the right to bring a case before the Committee on Ethics as grounds for an appeal to the Speaker of the House for reconsideration of any committee removal decision. Notably, that language is contained in one of the whereas clauses, not in the resolved clause, which is the only binding part of this resolution. And by the way, it's even been conceded by members of the GOP that the whereas clause, the quote is, merely references an existing process and in no way begins an appeal procedure or guarantees her committee seat will be reconsidered. It's non-binding and not actionable, a senior GOP aide told Politico on Tuesday. Well, in fact, I agree with that quote, with the exception that where it says that the clause added references an existing process. You can take that down. There is no such existing process. There is no due process at all afforded to the member who is being sought to be removed from a committee. And that is not due process. And I say that to address the many, many concerns that I've heard from members on the other side of the aisle, from members of the Rules Committee. There is no due process in this House resolution. Once the full House votes to strip a member of a right or privilege, only the full House can restore that right or privilege. Allowing Representative Omar to appeal to the Ethics Committee after the House has already voted to deny her a seat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee would be nonsensical, and it would be defective process. It is the wrong order of things. And it violates how the Ethics Committee has operated ever since its creation as a standing committee of the House in 1967, where the committee recommends a sanction after full investigation and adjudication, and the member is allowed to present evidence and make their case, and then the full House votes on the committee's recommendation for sanctions. House Resolution 76 violates the spirit of how our unique committee, the House's only evenly divided, truly partisan standing committee, operates. This is about partisanship, Mr. Speaker, not principle. This is about payback, not process. House Resolution 76 is wholly transparent for what it is, and I firmly oppose its passage. The gentlelady reserves. Thank you.
The gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I yield time to the gentleman from Ohio, I do want to point out that House Resolution 72 of the 117th Congress, which was the resolution that stripped Marjorie Taylor Greene of her committee assignments, contained no language whatsoever relating to due process and set forth no appeals process for her to be able to appeal the ruling of the body as a whole. And I will say that the resolution that we are debating today does contain language as to an appellate process. So I do believe that the resolution that we are debating today does contain additional rights to the member that we are seeking to remove than what was offered in House Resolution 72 as it relates to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Mr. Speaker, at this time I would yield 6 minutes to Max Miller from the great state of Ohio.
The gentleman is recognized for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentleman from Mississippi for yielding. Mr. Speaker, the House Committee on Foreign Affairs has broad jurisdiction over national security and foreign policy, peacekeeping and peace enforcement, international law, and the promotion of democracy, and many other critical issues that require its members to be both objective and credible. Members of the Committee on Foreign Affairs represent the United States abroad and are regarded as credible emissaries of American foreign policy. Their words have significant weight in guiding our relations with other countries and are relied upon by world leaders. Most importantly, our allies such as Israel, the forever home of the Jewish people. But what happens when a committee member is no longer viewed as a credible emissary of our foreign policy? What if a member is barred from visiting one of our allies because of their prejudiced comments? How can members who are unable to engage with our allies in a constructive manner be considered credible members of the committee? Well, the gentlelady's discriminatory comments disqualified her from traveling to Israel in 2019. Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, would not allow Representative Omar to enter, saying, "We respect all political parties in the United States equally. However, we will also respect ourselves. Whoever comes to impose boycotts on us and to deny the legitimacy of the State of Israel, we will not allow them entry." Yes, the gentlelady disqualified herself from entry into one of the most important countries allied with the United States. Over the past 75 years, Israel has been a steadfast ally of the United States. Israel has stood by us through the volatility in the Middle East, and this alliance has been critical to our own national security. How can someone not welcomed by one of our most important allies serve as an emissary of American foreign policy on the Foreign Affairs Committee? And given her biased comments against Israel and against the Jewish people, how can she serve as an objective decision maker on the committee? Let's take a look at some of the gentlelady's comments. In February of 2019, barely more than a month after becoming a member of this body, Representative Omar suggested that the Jewish people and the American Israel Public Affairs Committee were buying political support, writing on Twitter, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby," clearly amplifying an anti-Semitic stereotype about the Jewish people and money. In response, congressional Democratic leadership, her own party, immediately released a statement by saying, "Anti-Semitism must be called out, confronted, and condemned wherever it is encountered without exception." Not long after Representative Omar trivialized the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001, by describing that day of infamy as, "Some people did something." That's horrific. Some people did something. Yes, Mr. Speaker, some people did do something. Some people committed evil acts of terrorism and killed nearly 3,000 Americans. And in response, some thousands of our fellow citizens, myself included, enlisted in our armed forces to defend the gentlelady's right to make her prejudiced remarks. Many went off to combat and even died to defend that right. But they did not die fighting to have their bravery and love of country undermined by a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Mr. Speaker, I have no words to describe just how utterly unacceptable these comments are. But that's not all. In 2021, the gentlelady referred to Israel, which has the absolute right to defend itself against terrorism and attacks on its very existence, as an apartheid state. She even equated the United States and Israel, countries that have stood as beacons of democracy, to the Taliban and Hamas, organizations that impose terror on their regions in the world. Once again, even her Democrat colleagues swiftly condemned her comment. 12 Democrat members of this body released a statement which noted, equating the United States and Israel to Hamas and the Taliban is as offensive as it is misguided, ignoring the differences between democracies governed by the rule of law and contemptible organizations that engage in terrorism, at best discredits one intended argument and at worst reflects deep-seated prejudice from her own party. Some have decried this effort as a political game. Mr. Speaker, I assure you this is no political game. This resolution is not about engaging in a tit-for-tat with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. This is about keeping someone with a long record of anti-Semitic and anti-Israel bias off the Foreign Affairs Committee, which needs objective emissaries for our foreign policy. Even the Democrat former chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Eliot Engel, said that Representative Omar's anti-Semitic comments have no place in the Foreign Affairs Committee or the House of Representatives. That was in addition to the previously mentioned joint statement from 12 of the gentlelady's Democrat colleagues. The facts are clear. Representative Omar has espoused anti-Semitic and anti-Israel rhetoric time and again. She cannot be an objective contributor to the work of the committee, and she has brought dishonor to the House of Representatives. This body, this committee, which is viewed by nations around the world as speaking for Congress on matters of international importance and national security, should not have a seat for a member who would bring such dishonor to that committee. I encourage all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this resolution, to say with one voice that the United States House of Representatives does not condone hate, and to reaffirm we will always condemn anti-Semitism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Mississippi reserves. The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I now yield 3 minutes to Representative Dean Phillips of Minnesota, also a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
The gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Ilhan Omar and I are products of remarkably different life experiences. Hers began by fleeing civil war in Somalia before immigrating to the United States after 4 years in a Kenyan refugee camp, an experience that few, if any of us in this room could possibly imagine. My family came to America a century before hers, seeking the same safety, security, and opportunity as they fled Russian pogroms targeting Jewish people in Eastern Europe. And my life began by losing my father in the Vietnam War, an American tragedy that may well have been prevented had this very chamber been filled with more voices like Ilhan Omar's. Now, don't get me wrong. Representative Omar and I regularly disagree on policy, both domestic and foreign, and she has at times used words that have caused concern, offense, and even personal pain to me and others. She and I have spoken face to face on those occasions, and she has apologized, and she continues to learn from those missteps. Furthermore, she has never posted a video depicting herself decapitating and killing fellow members of Congress. She doesn't question whether a plane really smashed in to the Pentagon on 9/11. She does not wonder if school shootings in America are staged. She has not propagated the absurd notion that space lasers financed by the Rothschild family are the cause of wildfires in California. She has never equated vaccine mandates with Adolf Hitler. And she has never, ever expressed support for executing leaders of the United States Congress. Now, being a conspiracy theorist alone is not grounds for removal from committees, I'll admit that. But depicting violence or supporting violence against fellow members of Congress is grounds for removal, be it a Democrat or a Republican. But no one has accused Representative Omar of depicting or supporting violence against anyone in this chamber. So why will 90% of Jewish members of the United States House of Representatives vote to maintain her committee assignment? Quite simply, because we believe in the human capacity to learn from mistakes, to make amends, and that atonement should be rewarded, not punished. We also believe that the most dangerous acts by elected officials in a democracy are to silence voices of dissent, even those with which we fundamentally disagree. And that's what this is about, silencing and canceling. How ironic. Furthermore, this is the very weaponization of anti-Semitism that I, as a Jewish person, find repulsive, I find dangerous, and above else, shameful. Yes, shameful. So to my friends across the aisle, if you really are sincere about defeating anti-Semitism in America, how about ask us? How about ask us what we need? And let me assure you, you might be surprised by the answer. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania reserves, and the gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes from the representative from the great state of Tennessee, Mr. Kustoff.
The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of the resolution to remove Congresswoman Omar from the House Foreign Affairs Committee for her anti-Semitic speech, comments, and rhetoric. No doubt, words have meaning. When a member of Congress stands in this chamber, or at home, or in their district, the nation and the world pays attention to what they say and how they say it. When a member of Congress makes hateful and anti-Semitic remarks, they're amplified. They are magnified. Even more so when that member sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. The committee tasked with helping set policy and providing oversight over our nation's relationship with Israel and with Jewish communities around the world, it is imperative that this body not only speaks against anti-Semitism, but also holds accountable those who spread such hateful beliefs. As our nation's leaders, we have the ability and the responsibility to help combat anti-Semitism and ensure that our children, tomorrow's leaders, are taught that such rhetoric is unacceptable. Let's be clear, anti-Semitism has no place in the halls of the Congress, nor in our national conversation, and I stand here today in solidarity with the Jewish community to send a strong message that the United States House of Representatives does not tolerate such behavior. I urge my colleagues to support the resolution, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Mississippi reserves. The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the minority whip, Catherine Clark.
The gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you to the gentlelady from Pennsylvania for yielding. The Speaker of the House wrote this week that removing Democrats from their committees was motivated by integrity. Integrity? Is that the quality of honesty and acting with moral principle? There is no integrity here. Congresswoman Omar is a committed, hardworking, and highly valued member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. A refugee and a survivor of war, she knows firsthand how much is at stake in its work. It is too serious of a subject to be subjected to partisan games by the Republican majority. But that's how the GOP has decided to govern. Not with solutions, but with political stunts. How can my colleagues across the aisle talk about integrity and honor as they empower the most extreme voices in their party, as they claim due process has been added in when there is none, as they promote conspiracy theories?
Fired.
Can I go through 30 seconds? I hereby yield 30 seconds.
As they stack some of our most critical committees with election deniers. It is too late to inject integrity into this sham process, but we, as members, can inject our own by voting no on this resolution.
Gentlewoman yields back. The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania
Reserves.
is reserving. The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from the great state of New York, Nicole Malliotakis.
The gentlewoman from New York is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've heard from my colleagues the reasons why the Representative Omar should be removed from this committee, but I feel like all the reasons have not just yet been stated, which is why I rise to add for the record. We've heard about the comments that were made regarding anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli views, but I rise to add to the record that as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I've sat there and heard the representative actually spew anti-American rhetoric as well. I've been in that committee room where the representative equates Israel and the United States to Hamas and the Taliban. Absolutely unacceptable for a member of that committee. I've also heard the representative equate that it is the United States' fault that there is turmoil in Venezuela. That is not because of the oppressive socialist and communism that has spread throughout Central and South America and Venezuela at the hands of the Maduro and Hugo Chavez regimes. That is unacceptable. And as a New York representative, to hear the representative belittle, to try to diminish the worst terrorist attack on United States soil on September 11, 2001, as some people did something, that is unacceptable as well. And I hold the same standard for this side of the aisle that I do the other, because when another colleague on my side said something about 9/11, I also voted to have her removed from the Education Committee because I thought that was inappropriate. So I'm being consistent here, and I hope my colleagues will do the same to show that this is about consistency and accountability, because we should not have an individual with those views on the committee that is tasked with representing our country and our Congress to foreign nations. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Mississippi reserves. The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the former Majority Leader, Representative Steny Hoyer of Maryland.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to make the point. The two individuals that we removed from committees were not removed for their speech. They were removed because they made threats against other members. This one was made before the representative came. Mr. Gosar's, of course, was made during. But both were removed because of the threat they posed to 3 of our colleagues. Not because of their speech, but because of their threat. With an AK-47 or AR-15, I'm not sure which that gun is. And promoting themselves as the biggest nightmare to 3 of our colleagues. And Mr. Gosar portraying the murder of one of our colleagues. There is no equivalency here. We believe in free speech, however hateful that speech is. And I will tell you, I take a back seat to no one in this chamber to my support of Israel and against anti-Semitism. To no one.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Second.
Thank you.
But the equivalency that has been made here is absolutely without merit. And you go down a terrible road. I do not agree with the statements that were made. I oppose them. I said on this floor that I opposed them. But by golly, there are a whole lot of your folks over there that I disagree with vehemently, who rationalized insurrection and would be a reason for me to vote for having them off a committee. But that's not how we operate. But if a member threatens another member, that is a different kettle of fish
Gentleman's
altogether.
time has expired.
I support this. I oppose this resolution and urge its rejection. I yield back the balance of my time.
Members are reminded to please direct your comments to the chair.
I reserve.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 3 minutes to the gentlelady from the great state of Indiana, Ms. Sparks.
The gentlelady is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to comment on this resolution. Our country was founded on the principle of protection rights of minority, and it is constitutional republic for a reason, because our founding fathers understood that majority rule can lead to tyranny of majority, mob rule, and dictatorship. Last Congress, Speaker Pelosi and Democrat majority took unprecedented actions, removing minority party from committees, members. They also eliminated resolution of inquiry, which were used against Republican administration, and also eliminated the ability for minority party. It was very disappointed. So what I ask, I want to differentiate this resolution, Speaker McCarthy, and he added explicitly to this resolution to make sure that we apply the same standard not just to Democrats, but also to Republicans, and it's actually stated in this resolution, and also added that, we might look at the process of appeal. And I agree with gentlelady from Pennsylvania that we didn't have any due process because it was unprecedented what done was by her party. So maybe Ethics Committee at least have an ability to look if there is a way to look at the process, if that's going to be continued. But I hope maybe we can reconcile it and have a better collaboration as two parties, as we were talking today at the press breakfast on the bipartisan basis. But I think it's important for us to really look at us as a body and start respecting minority. And unfortunately, the other party started this unprecedented action when they won the majority. And we have to work on that, how we can reconcile. I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman is recognized.
I completely concur with the gentlelady from Indiana that we need a better process and one that affords due process, but this resolution does not. With that, I yield 4 minutes to the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, former chairman, Representative Meeks of New York.
The gentleman is recognized for 4 minutes.
Madam Chair, it is undeniable that Representative Omar has made what has been considered to be offensive anti-Semitic comments in the past. It is also undeniable that Representative Omar has apologized, learned, and been a reliable and productive member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. And I've watched her work with her colleagues on both sides of the aisle. She cares about her country. She cares about our national security. She cares about diplomacy. Her perspective is invaluable to the House Foreign Affairs Committee. She's a refugee and the only African-born Muslim member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. We know that diverse perspectives strengthen our policymaking and national security. Losing Representative Omar's voice on the committee to extremist politics would be a shameful mark on this body, harmful to the interests of the American people and our image abroad, and damage to democracy itself. I also know the sheer hypocrisy of Speaker McCarthy and members of his party looking to deny Representative Omar a seat on the Foreign Affairs Committee is rich. This resolution is not about addressing dishonor or respect for the House. This resolution is not about addressing anti-Semitism. If it were, there'd be other members named in this resolution. For example, on October of 2018, a Republican member tweeted, "We cannot allow Soros, Steyer, and Bloomberg to buy this election and get out the vote for Republicans November 6th, MAGA." That was the Speaker of the House. The tweet included a video featuring the member discussing George Soros, Tom Steyer, and former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, all Jewish men who are significant donors of the Democratic campaigns and causes. Were these the only wealthy Democratic donors he could choose from? Jewish money buying elections is a stereotype about the Jewish faith popular among the alt-right. And I recall no apology, unlike Representative Omar, to or for this tweet. This is far from the only example of the hypocrisy. Representatives on the Republican side have defended and agreed with well-known white supremacist and anti-Semite Nick Fuentes and spoken at Fuentes events. Other Republican members have claimed the Zionist supremacists are conspiring to flood Europe and with migrants in order to replace the white populations there. My Republican colleagues have quoted Adolf Hitler in congressional remarks promoted the Great Replacement theory and invited a Holocaust denier to the State of the Union. And finally, when this Congress moved the House resolution condemning anti-Semitism, there was only one member that voted against it, and it wasn't a Democrat. So why is this member being targeted today? We don't have time to go through the entire list of objectionable remarks that the other side has made. The point is, none of these comments caused any of the members who made them to be removed from committees. Not removed from the Education and Labor Committee, not removed from the Judiciary Committee, not removed from the Armed Services Committee, not removed from the Homeland Security Committee. A blatant double standard is being applied here. Something just doesn't add up. And what is the difference between Rep. Omar and these members? Could it be the way that she looks?
Time is expired.
Could it be her religious practices? Could it be?
15 seconds.
Because it's clear, if she were on the other side of the aisle, we would not be having this debate today. That is absolutely clear. The GOP was not outraged when Donald Trump broke bread with the anti-Semitic Holocaust deniers at his Florida mansion. There was no outrage when Donald Trump tweets deployed images of the Star of David and stacks of currency.
Gentleman's time is expired.
We need to vote no and stand up for democracy, and democracy means
Gentleman's time is expired.
Representative Omar needs to remain and be productive on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And I yield back the battle for my time.
The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this time, I would yield 3 minutes to the representative from the great state of New York, Mr. Lawler.
The gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to speak in support of House Resolution 76. This is not about vengeance or retribution. It is about accountability. I represent New York's 17th District, home to one of the largest Jewish populations in the country. Between Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, and Dutchess counties, I represent almost 100,000 constituents that practice the Jewish faith. I take the scourge of anti-Semitism very seriously. It is something that must be rooted out in our society, as well as in the halls of Congress. No one who peddles in anti-Semitic activity, behavior, or language should have any right to serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, which has an incredibly important role to play in partnering with our strongest ally, the State of Israel. Two of my predecessors, Ben Gilman and Elliot Engel, served as chairs of this important committee. Israel's continued existence as a beacon of liberty, democracy, and peace in the Middle East serves as a model for other nations in the region and is something we should be celebrating, not demeaning. Comments made by members of this body about support for Israel being all about the Benjamins, or that the State of Israel is engaging in apartheid, are appalling, wrong, and disqualifying. Additionally, those who dismiss 9/11 as some people who did something, are you kidding me? It was a terrorist attack. It wasn't some people doing something. Or to equate the United States and Israel, both democratic nations, to the Taliban and Hamas, and those who promote the anti-Semitic BDS movement, You're damn right they deserve to be held accountable. As a member that represents a district that suffered greatly due to 9/11 and still has constituents grappling with the effects of that horrific, tragic day, dying of 9/11 health-related situation, I find those remarks jarring and alarming and insulting. To be clear, the representative can say whatever the heck she wants, but we don't have to accept it or embrace it. Individuals who hold such hateful views should rightly be barred from that type of committee. We cannot let the poisonous ideology of anti-Semitism permeate into policy decisions that impact the lives of millions of Jews around the world. And I will stand up to anti-Semitism and defend Israel's right to exist and the right of Jews everywhere to practice their faith peacefully and safely. This is not about silencing anyone. The rise in anti-Semitism is significant.
The gentleman's time has expired.
And these hate crimes have not been prosecuted.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Yield the gentleman another 15 seconds.
Words matter. Rhetoric matters. It leads to harm. And so the Congresswoman is being held accountable for her words and her actions. And that is why I support this resolution.
Gentleman's time has expired. The woman from Pennsylvania, recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from New York, Representative Ocasio-Cortez.
All right, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Now, as a fellow New Yorker, I think one of the things that we should talk about here is also one of the disgusting legacies after 9/11 has been the targeting and racism against Muslim Americans throughout the United States of America, and this is an extension of that legacy. Consistency, there is nothing consistent with the Republican Party's continued attack except for the racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this body. I had a member of the Republican caucus threaten my life, and you all and the Republican caucus rewarded him with one of the most prestigious committee assignments in this Congress. Don't tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of anti-Semitic remarks when you have a member of the Republican caucus who has talked about Jewish space lasers and an entire amount of tropes and also elevated her to some of the highest committee assignments in this body. This is about targeting women of color in the United States of America. Don't tell me, because I didn't get a single apology when my life was threatened. Thank you.
The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Reserve at this time, Madam Speaker.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Representative Presley.
Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to the rhetoric and resolution from across the aisle, our colleagues who seek to make history for all the wrong reasons. I rise on behalf of every little girl who sees herself in the leadership of Congresswoman Omar. She is a mother, daughter, refugee, advocate, skilled policymaker, a duly and decisively elected third-term member to the U.S. House of Representatives. I have spent time in the Minnesota 5th. I have seen her pull her community through grief and loss. I have seen her stand arm in arm on picket lines with our educators and our nurses. I have seen her pass historic legislation to feed our babies in our schools. She has built coalitions, given constituents in crisis a sense of agency, and centered to most marginalized in word and deed. No matter how embattled, no matter how racially profiled, no matter how targeted, she has pressed on for peace over militarization, human rights at home and abroad, a world where an education is a fundamental right, where gender equity is recognized. I want to live in that world. Let me make it plain.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Ilhan Omar is right where she belongs.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Is needed on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Her clarity, conviction,
the gentlewoman's time has expired and she is no longer recognized. The gentleman from Mississippi.
Madam Speaker, at this time I yield 1 minute to my friend from the great state of Florida, Mr. Jimenez.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Anti-Semitism has no place on the Foreign Affairs Committee. I say it again, anti-Semitism has no place on the Foreign Affairs Committee. That's why Representative Omar has no place specifically on the Foreign Affairs Committee, where Israel's security is one of the issues of critical importance. Without a doubt, the democratic Jewish state of Israel is America's strongest ally in the Middle East and has a fundamental right to exist. Representative Omar has repeated anti-Semitic canards and perpetuated hateful tropes against the Jewish community, and her comments have compromised the ability of the House Foreign Affairs Committee to conduct its official business. I urge my colleagues to vote in the affirmative to remove Representative Ilhan Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you, and I yield back.
All right, the gentleman from Mississippi is reserved, and the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Missouri, Representative Bush.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
St. Louis and I rise in support of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. I've been to her district. I've spoken with her constituents. We visited marginalized communities globally together. This institution is better because of her leadership, and the Foreign Affairs Committee benefits from her perspective. So let's talk about what's really happening. Republicans are waging a blatantly Islamophobic and racist attack on Congresswoman Omar. And I've said it before, I will say it again. The white supremacy happening is unbelievable. This is despicable. It is Congresswoman Omar who has been harassed at her job for simply existing as a Muslim woman in Congress. It is she who has been attacked by a member of this body, ridiculing her as a potential terrorist for simply existing as a Muslim woman in this Congress. So rather than bring an actual accountability, any accountability to Congress, they bring this offensive resolution to the floor. This is just a bunch of racist gaslighting. We all know it. Vote no.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania reserves, and the gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
We reserve at this time.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Representative Swalwell.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, when I heard that we're going to remove a member of this House from their committee for anti-Semitism, I raced down here because I thought, finally, in this chamber, there's going to be some accountability from this conference that continues to allow its members to root for rioters, to show sympathy for the insurrection, a conference that harbors a wanted international criminal and has members who choose violence over voting every single day, finally. And so I thought, we're going to hold someone accountable for anti-Semitism. Surely it's the author of this tweet. Kanye, Elon, Trump, October 6th, written by Chairman Jim Jordan. October 8th, what does Kanye say? I'm going to declare DEFCON 3 on the Jews. So surely this tweet came down, right? Came down, was deleted. No, 2 more months it was kept up. 2 more months. So don't come here looking at us for anti-Semitism. Look in your own damn mirror before you ever come over here. And I yield back.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania reserves, and the gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
I reserve, Madam Speaker.
Okay, the woman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
How much time do we have left?
10.25 minutes.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Washington State, Representative Jayapal.
And the representative is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, this is a revenge resolution that seeks to remove Representative Ilhan Omar's strong and necessary voice from the Foreign Affairs Committee. It is an attempt to silence her simply because you do not agree with her views and you cannot begin to understand her lived experience. Her lived experience as a war survivor, as a refugee, as somebody who brings an experience to this body that you're not even trying to understand. We have previously voted in a bipartisan manner to remove individuals from their committee assignments because of their violent actions that endangered the safety of their colleagues. That is not what today is about. Today is about revenge. It is also about the fact that Republicans want to distract the American people from the fact that they have absolutely no legislation to bring to the floor that is actually about helping the American people with their costs, with dealing with inflation. You don't have any solutions, so you're trying to distract with these inane,
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
Absurd, absolutely absurd resolutions. Vote no.
remind members to direct their remarks to the chair, and the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania reserves, and the gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
I reserve as well at this time.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Representative Schiff.
And the gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this resolution. First, as to the false pretext, 2 members of the Republican conference were removed from committees for inciting violence, encouraging violence against their colleagues. There is nothing at all at issue like that here. You want to introduce a resolution to condemn someone for inciting violence against their colleagues or against people here in Congress? Introduce a resolution against Donald J. Trump. No one has incited more violence against this chamber than Donald Trump. Now, let me talk about anti-Semitism. Do not insult our intelligence by suggesting this is about anti-Semitism. You want to introduce a resolution against someone guilty of anti-Semitism? Introduce a resolution against someone dining with anti-Semites, someone dining with white nationalists, members of your conference who are speaking at white nationalist rallies. Introduce a resolution against Donald J. Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, and others. But do not
The gentleman's time has
insult our
expired.
intelligence by saying this is about anti-Semitism.
The gentleman's time
Vote
has
no on this
expired.
resolution.
The woman from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
I reserve.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Wisconsin, Representative Pocan.
And the gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 1 minute.
This is a new low. The majority party uplifts and seats on committees a member who has a history of pathological lying, but wants to remove someone who even Republican members of Congress admit is a talented member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Want to oust people for what they've said? How about a member of the majority party who said that Jewish space lasers set forest fires in California? No, she's seated on a committee. Multiple Republican members have said prominent Jewish Democrats essentially bought control of Congress. But they're not only given full congressional privileges, but you elect them to GOP leadership. Republicans only draw the line when an incredibly productive member of a committee says something that she's apologized for. That doesn't add up. This clearly isn't about what Ilhan Omar said as much as who she is. Being a smart, outspoken black woman of a Muslim faith is apparently the issue. And some Republicans can't handle it, so they're going to kick her off the committee. Unbelievable bigotry. Shame on you. I yield back.
The woman from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
At this time, we reserve, Madam Speaker.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Illinois, Representative Schakowsky. No? Come on.
The representative is recognized for 1 minute.
We didn't tell her. No. Does that count against us?
My colleagues, I stand before you as a proud Jew and a proud friend and colleague of Ilhan Omar. I don't need any of you to defend me against anti-Semitism. My friend Ilhan Omar, we have worked together to the values that I treasure as an American Jew and that she treasures as an American member of the Islamic woman, the only one on the Foreign Affairs Committee. That is the third largest religion in the world, and we in the United States of America. I am just furious. We have seen all kinds of anti-Semitism from the other side of the aisle, and as Americans, we should be.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Vote no on this. We need
the gentlewoman's
to defend
time
our
has expired.
values as Americans and me as a Jew.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Madam Speaker, we reserve at this time.
The gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Michigan, Representative Tlaib.
The gentlewoman from Michigan is recognized for 1 minute.
Desperation. So desperate to distract the American people from their total inability to govern. The GOP is now doing what it is best at, weaponizing hate against a black, beautiful Muslim woman. Congresswoman Omar's lived experience as a refugee and a child of survivor of war should be welcomed on this committee. It is needed. When you can't pass any bills that actually improve the people's lives, they turn to Congress. They turn Congress into a place of fear-mongering hate. It is so painful to watch. How ironic that the so-called lovers of personal freedom are now moving to censor Congresswoman Omar in the same week they introduced a bill to ban federal employees from engaging in censorship. Where are the free speech warriors today? The hypocrisy is obvious to the American people. You are showing who you all are, really.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Omar will not be silenced.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
To Omar, I am so sorry, has expired. That our country is failing you today through this chamber. You belong
The gentlewoman is no longer recognized, and the gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I reserve.
Gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
How much time do I have?
5¼ minutes.
I yield to the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Representative Omar, to close.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
This debate today, it's about who gets to be an American. What opinions do we have to be counted as Americans? This is what this debate is about, Madam Speaker. There is this idea that you are a suspect if you are an immigrant, or if you are from certain parts of the world, or a certain skin tone, or a Muslim. It is no accident that members of the Republican Party accused the first Black president, Barack Obama, of being a secret Muslim. It is no accident that former President Donald Trump led a birther movement that falsely claimed he was born in Kenya. Because to them, falsely labeling the first and only President of the United States of America a Muslim and African immigrant somehow made him less American. Well, I am Muslim. I am an immigrant, and interestingly, from Africa. Is anyone surprised that I am being targeted? Is anyone surprised that I am somehow deemed unworthy to speak about American foreign policy? Or that they see me as a powerful voice that needs to be silenced? Frankly, it is expected, because when you push power, power pushes back. Representation matters. Continuing to expand our ideas of who is American and who can partake in the American experiment is a good thing. I am an American who was sent here, by her constituents to represent them in Congress, a refugee who survived the horrors of a civil war, someone who spent her childhood in a refugee camp, someone who knows what it means to have a shot at a better life here in the United States, and someone who believes in the American dream and the American possibility and the promise and the ability to participate in the democratic process. That is what this debate is about. There is an idea out there that I do not have objective decision-making because of who I am, where I come from, and my perspective. But I reject that. We say there is nothing objective about policymaking. We all inject our perspective, our point of views, our lived experiences, and the voices of our constituents. That's what democracy is about. So what is the work of the Foreign Affairs Committee? It is not to co-sign the stated foreign policy of whatever administration is in power. It's about oversight. It's to critique and to advocate for a better path forward. But most importantly, it is to make the myth that American foreign policy is intrinsically moral a reality. So I will continue to speak up because representation matters. I will continue to speak up for little kids who wonder who's speaking up for them. I will continue to speak up for families around the world who are seeking justice, whether they are displaced in refugee camps or they are hiding under their beds somewhere like I was, waiting for the bullets to stop. Because this child, survivor of war, would have wanted that. The 9-year-old me would be disappointed if I didn't talk about the victims of conflict, those that are experiencing unjust wars, atrocities, ethnic cleansing, occupation, or displacement like I did. They are looking to the international community and the United States, asking for help. They look to us because the international community and the United States profess the values of protecting human rights and upholding international law. So we owe it to them not to make this a myth, but a reality. I didn't come to Congress to be silent. I came to Congress to be their voice. And my leadership and voice will not be diminished if I am not on this committee for one term. My voice will get louder and stronger, and my leadership will be celebrated around the world as it has been. So take your vote or not. I am here to stay, and I am here to be a voice against harms around the world and advocate for a better world. I yield back.
Okay, the gentleman from Mississippi is recognized. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield myself the balance of my time. In closing, I want to adopt the comments that were made by then Chairman of Foreign Affairs, Eliot Engel. In late February 2019, Chairman of Foreign Affairs, Engel, after a third anti-Semitic statement in just over 2 weeks, 17 days to be exact, then Chairman Engel said these words: "It is unacceptable and deeply offensive to call into question the loyalty of fellow American citizens based on their political views, including support for the U.S.-Israel relationship. We all take the same oath." Worst, Representative Omar's comments leveled that charge by invoking a vile anti-Semitic slur. Chairman Engel went on to say that such comments have no place in the Foreign Affairs Committee or the House of Representatives. I agree with the statements made by Chairman Engel. Not only do Representative Omar's comments have no place in the Foreign Affairs Committee, I hold that anyone who makes such statements have no place serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And I ask all members to support this resolution removing Ms. Omar from the Committee on Foreign Affairs. And I yield back.
All right, the gentleman yields back. All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 83, the previous question is ordered on the resolution and the preamble. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those in favor say no. No. It's the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it and the resolution is agreed to. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.